Hey viewers and friends, Andrew back again and welcome to another video, and this is a video response to Moodz 616. If you're not subscribed to him, please check him out. He's an awesome YouTuber, one of my favourites. I'm sure most of you know who he is, but if you do not, I'll be leaving his channel link in the description box, so head on over and check him out. He uploaded a really cool video a few days ago called Best of Blind Buys. And basically he was just showing a bunch of movies that he has picked up that he pretty much knew nothing about or next to nothing about before buying them, and they turned out to be really good. So I thought this was a neat idea, and considering pretty much most of my collection is blind buys, and for the most part luckily it has paid off quite well. There has been some pretty big disappointments though. But for the most part, most of my blind buying has worked out in my favour. But there's a select few that really stand out to me, so obviously I'm not going to have time to show all my blind buys, but I've just picked out a few that definitely have stood out to me over some others. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first one I actually picked up while I was in New Zealand last year. Went over there on holiday to visit some family, visit my mum, and I was in one of the local stores and came across this movie, Son of Rambo, and the cover looked pretty cool and so did the title, and just as I'd guessed it, it was sort of centered around Rambo. What this movie is essentially is it's about a couple of British school kids. One of them is really fascinated with movie making and he wants to make a short film to enter it into a competition. So he gets some of the students involved from his school, and essentially they make a kid version of Rambo. It's set in the 80s, and while it doesn't exactly have the greatest 80s sort of throwback vibe to it, I found this movie to be a ton of fun. And being a big Rambo fan myself, I really did enjoy this one quite a bit. So this was a nice find. I really didn't know too much about the movie prior to picking it up. The next movie is definitely one of my favourite blind buys ever. And this was another one that I really didn't know too much about before picking up. And I own a couple of copies of the film, and it is BMX Bandits. Now, you guys know how much I love this movie. I've mentioned it quite a bit before. I own the US Synapse Blu-ray, and I also own the Umbrella Entertainment Blu-ray from Australia. Now, a couple of years ago, I picked up the US Synapse one. It was in one of my orders from Amazon. And I'd never seen the movie before, and I really didn't know too much about it before going into it, apart from just reading the IMDb synopsis and the synopsis and Amazon page, some reviews and stuff. And being a big 80s fan, I wanted to check it out, and I absolutely loved it. It turned out to be one of my favourite films of all time, and I was kind of ashamed that up until 2 years ago I'd never seen this movie before. But yeah, this is a fantastic film. I picked this one up, that was either last year or it might have even been earlier this year actually. I think it might have been earlier this year. And this is one of my biggest surprises in terms of a blind buy, and that's The Darkest Hour. Now, I actually was in Sanity, and they still have the deal. They're running a 4 for $50 Blu-ray and DVD deal. Anyway, I've done that deal a few times, and I was actually browsing there. I had 3 other titles selected, and I was looking for the 4th title, and I came across this film, and I actually got it confused with another movie. And I read the synopsis, and it sounded absolutely fantastic, and I really hadn't heard anyone mentioned this movie before, and I decided to give it a go. I was looking for another really good sci-fi film, and boy did it pay off. This movie was absolutely fantastic, one of the best sci-fis that I've seen in the past couple of years. And it's really different because the aliens, you can't see them, they're sort of electricity, and it just makes for a really sort of interesting film and an interesting sort of sci-fi concept. So I highly recommend The Darkest Hour. Now, I actually got this confused with Chronicle, and then when I got home I realised that I'd got the movie mixed up, and upon reading reviews, the reviews for this film aren't that positive, and I was kind of a little bit worried that I'd made a mistake picking it up. But sure enough, when I checked it out, I thought it was fantastic. So I definitely recommend this one, The Darkest Hour. And this is probably the most official blind buy that I've done. And in saying that, I'm talking about a movie that I'd never heard of before. I'd never knew that was in existence until I saw it in the store, and I basically saw the cover art and read the synopsis, and that is all I knew about the film, and that is The Clinic. So I was in another local store one day, and I was browsing the DVD section, and I came across this movie. It was out on the shelves, and the cover art interested me. And I'd never heard of this movie before, I never knew anything about it, but I read the synopsis on the back and it sounded really, really good. And then I noticed that it won a few awards, which in previous experience doesn't really mean a hell of a lot. But I decided to give it a go. It was nice and cheap, and when I got home I did a little bit more investigating. I checked out the IMDb page, and to my surprise, this was an Australian film, or it's an Australian movie. Now, I didn't know that when I originally picked it up, and I watched it and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. So out of every blind buy that I've done, this movie is probably the most official, because I didn't really do any research on it before picking it up, and hell, I didn't even know this movie existed until I saw it on the store shelf. So that's The Clinic, and I've talked about this movie a few times on previous videos and stuff, and I'm pleased that a few of you guys have been checking this out and have enjoyed it. Alright, now we're on to some slashers. So you guys know how much of a slasher fan I am, and this is pretty much the movie that really kickstarted my love for the genre, or at least one of them, when I really got serious into collecting a few years back. And that is My Bloody Valentine. Now, I can remember picking up this Blu-ray from a trader on Blu-ray.com. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Blu-ray.com. He was selling a few horror movies, and this was one of them. And I really didn't know too much about this movie, apart from what I'd read up on it, and it sounded really cool. And I must admit, the cover art attracted me. He sent me some photos and stuff, and yeah, I was really drawn to the photo of this one due to the cover art. So I decided to give it a go. I can't even remember how much I paid for it. I don't think it was too much, but what an amazing movie, and it was definitely one of the first slasher films to really kickstart my collecting obsession. So that's My Bloody Valentine. Awesome film, I absolutely love it. This was picked up slightly later on into my collecting of slasher films, and that is Evil Laugh. Now, I really didn't know too much about this movie before checking it out. This is a fairly obscure one. I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about this movie here on YouTube until I picked it up. And so yeah, it was pretty much a blind buy. This was going for crazy amounts of money on Amazon, and it was a weird movie to pick up because the prices would always fluctuate. Like, sometimes it'd be selling for like $30 to $40, and then other times it would be around the $12 to $14 mark. Luckily, I came across it for a cheap price, and when I first checked it out, it was cheap, and then I left it, and then it went out of stock, and then when it came back into stock, it was really expensive, and I was like, fucking hell, I should have just got it when it was cheap. But luckily the pricing came down on it again, and I didn't waste any time. I ordered it, and this was fantastic. It's really cheesy, but it's a great slasher film for any 80s slasher fan. I have no idea whether this is still available on Amazon or not, but that's Evil Laugh. This one was one that I picked up really late into my slasher collecting. In fact, I picked it up this year, and I've got to say, out of every 80s slasher movie that no one ever really talks about, this one is definitely the best. This is one that I kind of did a bit of research going into before picking it up, but I pretty much just got it for the sake that it was an 80s slasher that I needed for the collection that I didn't own yet, and I pretty much just picked it up on that basis, and I wasn't really too concerned whether it would be good or not, but it turned out to be frigging awesome, and that is Welcome to Spring Break. I love this slasher movie so much. It's one of my absolute favourites from the 80s, and yeah, one of my best blind buys out of any slasher that I've picked up. As I said, I got this very late into my slasher collecting, but it was well worth the wait. And sadly, this is very underrated. I mean, I never really hear anyone talk about it. I've noticed a few of you picking it up after I've recommended it, which has been awesome. Moodz, I know that you really like this one a lot. But this is fantastic. I really like the killer in this one. He rides a motorbike, and without giving too much away, the motorbike is basically what he uses to kill people. Very unique sort of kill style to this film, and it's got really good characters. The two sort of main characters are fantastic, the two sort of teenagers. The killer's pretty awesome as well. There's a neat twist at the end which I did not see coming at all, and it's got a fantastic 80s vibe to it. So that is Welcome to Spring Break. And the last movie for Best of the Blind Buys goes to none other than Dream Home. Now, this was another fairly recent addition to my slasher collection, and I came across this on Amazon UK. I was just browsing some slasher films, or I think it was Asian horror actually, and I came across this one, and I'd never really heard of it before. So I read the sort of synopsis, obviously, checked out some of the user reviews, which were all really good, and I don't think I looked it up on YouTube or anything. I ended up just looking on the IMDb page or something, or I checked out some written reviews on it or something like that, and I decided to give it a go. Again, this is one that I'd never heard anyone mention before from YouTube, so I decided, why not, I'm going to give it a go. I was sort of getting into Asian horror at the time, and this one sounded really good. Wow, this was frigging amazing, especially in terms of the kills. The kills in this film are absolutely incredible. They're some of the most realistic deaths that I've ever seen in a slasher film. Very violent, brutal and gory. The storyline, while I did enjoy it, I felt that it could have been told slightly better. There were a lot of sort of flashbacks and like flipping backwards and forwards throughout the film, which I kind of felt disrupted it a little bit. But other than that, this is an amazing slasher, and it's pretty interesting because this one is about a woman, an Asian woman, and she's trying to buy the ultimate apartment. Basically, her whole life she's sort of been obsessed with living in a waterfront apartment, and she can't quite afford it. She's holding down several different jobs, trying to get the money to afford the apartment, but she just can't do it. So she pretty much has the notion that if she can't have this certain apartment, no one else can. So she pretty much takes it upon herself to go on a killing spree. So I haven't spoiled anything because you pretty much know who the killer is right from the start. But I found that really interesting and different because you know who the killer is. The killer isn't wearing a disguise or anything. So yeah, I just thought that was kind of cool. But this is a fantastic film, and I highly recommend it to anyone that is wanting a really awesome modern slasher that is really gory, violent and brutal. Alright, so that does it for this video. They are just some of my blind buys that I do consider best of my blind buys. As I said earlier, the majority of my collection have been blind buys, and for the most part they've paid off, but there has been some shockers, as I'm sure most of you have also experienced in your movie collecting time. So yeah, Moodz, once again mate, thank you for doing this video, because I thought it was a fantastic idea and I certainly would not have ever thought of doing it. So I definitely wanted to do a response for you, and guys, I'm definitely keen to hear what some of your best blind buys are. So either do a video response for me or Moodz, or leave your blind buy picks in the comment section below. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and thanks you for watching.